I'm going to share a few techniques on how to overcome the one thing that every athlete and high performer dreads: choking. Hey everyone, it's Albán from SPMI here. I just started a new YouTube channel that I look to bring great value to everyone watching. Whether you're an athlete, a parent, a coach, or a high performer in any profession. In these videos, I'll make sure to dive into mental toughness topics that will help you reach your full potential. And in this video, I'm going to share a few techniques on how to overcome the one thing that every athlete and high performer dreads: choking. Now, I'm not talking about the type of choking that involves getting something stuck in your throat. Yes, that feeling is also dreadful. No, I'm talking about the type of choking that's initiated from our fears. Now, I know for many of you, just the word choking brings back some bad memories and feelings. Those moments when your body gets tight, your heart races, and you notice your thoughts just compounding one after the other. You may even catch yourself stumbling over your words or hyperventilating. If you haven't already thought of a moment in your past like this, just take a few moments to think of one. And also take a brief moment to smash that like button. Now, in thinking back to a moment when you experienced choking, it could be one from a particular competition, or even while giving a speech or during a job interview. Whatever memory comes to mind, you know one thing's for sure: it's not a nice feeling, and I, for one, can definitely relate to it, even on a personal level. You see, when I was a junior tennis player, it was one of my biggest struggles, and I was known to many players as what's called a great practice player. But when it came to playing tournaments, especially against particular players, I would tighten up like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. In fact, I can clearly remember one specific moment when I was around the age of 16. At this time, I played against the same player 3 times in a span of only 5 weeks. And the first 2 times, I was a nervous wreck. So how did that come about? Well, I'll get to that shortly. But first, let's talk about some of the reasons why we as athletes and performers choke. First off, choking is about perception and the amount of meaning we give to situations. You see, the more meaning you give to a situation, the more you start to care about it. For example, if an athlete is competing in practice, they most likely won't get as nervous as they would if they were competing in a championship game. So the meaning the athlete places on the event is directly related to how much pressure they'll feel before and during that event. Also, remember, it isn't just about the amount of meaning you place on an event that adds pressure. For many athletes, it's about the amount of meaning that other people place on them and how much that athlete cares what they think, or how much influence that individual has over their future. For example, I've helped hundreds of high school athletes overcome the pressure of competing in front of the eyes of college coaches, helping the delivery of their best performance when it counts the most. See, these athletes have gone on to get signed by top universities and have an outstanding college playing career. But why do many of these athletes get so nervous in front of those coaches? It's because to many of those athletes, those college coaches are the only ones who stand between them and their dreams of playing for that program. Now combine that with the fact that many high school athletes only choose a small sample of colleges that they wish to play for, and the pressure amounts even more. Once again, it takes on even more meaning because those athletes have chosen very few options to play for. The second factor that leads to choking is what's called uncertainty. This means the level of uncertainty an athlete feels going into a competitive situation that they can get the job done. In these situations, athletes and performers need to feel sure that they can succeed and not mess up. So for many athletes, when they're not sure if they can win or succeed, their mind will race, searching for as many clues as possible to confirm their safety during the upcoming competition. So going back to my tennis example when I was just 16, I placed a lot of meaning on this particular scenario. And as a result, I felt very nervous. You see, playing against this particular player mattered more because other friends and players told me how good he was. Plus combine that with how highly ranked he was, what prestigious school he played for, and who he's beaten. This information just pushed my nerves into overdrive. Not to mention that at 16 years of age, I cared a lot about what other people thought of me. So whenever I stepped on the tennis court, I dreaded the idea of those same people watching me as I played against this player. The second component of choking, as I mentioned earlier, is our struggle with uncertainty. You see, I was very uncertain if I had what it took to beat this player, let alone not get embarrassed. So then what happened as a result was somewhat comical looking back at it now, but far from it while I was in the midst of facing it. The first time I played this player, I got so tight that I couldn't relax my arms and got into what is called in tennis as a pushing contest. For all of you non-tennis players listening, this means I started hitting the ball softer, trying not to miss. And this is another sign of choking that you see displayed in all sports. For example, a basketball player or soccer player will stop shooting the ball or taking shots and instead will pass it off whenever they have a chance of scoring. A person in sales will avoid asking the hard questions and instead let the prospect dictate the conversation, just hoping that he or she decides to buy. So this behavior in sports and in life is just one example of when athletes and performers try their best to avoid mistakes. There's a popular saying in many sports that perfectly describes this behavior. Always play to win instead of playing not to lose. So when this is all happening to the athlete, mistakes start looking more like a deadly poison. As a result for me, I ended up going 3 long sets against this player, even being up in the 3rd set and then getting even more nervous and eventually losing in the 3rd set tiebreak. That means the match was very, very close. Now on paper, it looked like it wasn't a bad performance, but I knew I could play much better, and I was disgusted at how I let the nerves get the best of me. Sure enough, I played against this same player 2 weeks later in another tournament. And this time, I was nervous and tight again. The same pressures creeped up this time, and an additional pressure even popped into my mind. The pressure to now prove that I could beat this player, and the expectation from others that I should play better than the last time. So in the second match, I battled through the nerves again. And I was playing very tight, and in this long 3-set match lasted over 3 hours, and I just barely won. Or as I mentioned earlier in the saying, I barely didn't lose. Now after the match was over, I was so disgusted with the way I played that I asked this player if we could exchange in numbers and just play on our own sometime in the near future. This is because I knew that I could play a lot better than what I showed, and I believed he also felt the same. So he happily agreed, and we set a time to play a match, and the following weekend we met. And now came the time to play him for a 3rd time. That day, I remember arriving at the court to play him. It was a huge parking lot completely empty with only his car and mine, and there were over 15 tennis courts there, but we were the only players playing that day. No spectators, not even a stranger passing by. That day, I remember approaching the tennis court, determined to win, but I noticed that my mind was so much quieter and the nerves were gone. The meaning of the moment in my life was completely different. It wasn't about proving. It wasn't about protecting myself from embarrassment. It was about going out there and playing my game to the best of my ability and not settling for anything less. That day, I won that match, 6-1, 6-0, in under an hour. Everything was working, especially my mind. And one of the biggest reasons why was meaning. Playing against this player in a practice match where the match didn't mean anything, and no one was there to watch or judge me, just relaxed my mind enough to just go out there and play free. And get this, even have fun. So instead of fearing mistakes, I was actually looking forward to seeing the ball come back to my side of the court so that I could attack it again. So the lesson here is to be aware of several factors. First, to avoid choking, you want to focus on certainty. In many cases, this means focusing only on what you can control. And one big area that none of you can control is what other people think of you, or other athletes' teams, or other prospects, how they will compete against you. Just throw that idea out the window. And just be careful. Focusing on areas of certainty does not mean that you should search for 100% certainty. Focusing on perfect certainty will actually increase worry and tension. So make sure to focus on just enough certainty, or an area where you feel more certain than another. The second is meaning. Make sure that you understand clearly what this competition means to you. If you see this upcoming competition like it's the make-all, be-all moment of your life, then I assure you that you're probably going to perform pretty bad. But if you treat it as simply another competition, then you'll be on pace to performing more closely to your full potential and far away from the dreadful choking. And third, focus on enjoying the pressure and not trying to avoid it. To many athletes, this means stay away from focusing on not trying to make mistakes and instead focus on playing your game. Also, focus on little things that you enjoy about the competition, such as the feeling of challenging your skills every time. Use competition as a moment of exploration instead of striving to reach an ideal destination. This means with every moment, take the chance to put your skills into play and see where they take you and what you learn from it. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I just started this channel and my mission here is to provide everyone with much more great content, and your likes help a lot. Also, please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest mental toughness tips, interviews, and more. This will help ensure that your mental game is in top shape for every upcoming challenge that lies ahead. And lastly, if you're interested in taking your mental toughness to the next level, don't hesitate to contact SPMI to learn more, or click on the company link below to get started. SPMI is a mental toughness company that has helped thousands of athletes and high performers in their various professions reach their goals. We help athletes and performers by providing the mental toughness blueprint needed to perform to their full potential when it matters the most.